Building the message, nausea and argument. The comms workroom was 4 decks up and toward the bow, and the guard outside the door had clearly been told to expect them. Deem? He let them pass without comment, which was a relief. Three Seagrass was not sure she could manage another security checkpoint. The third one? On the way here, the guard had asked for her authorization code, her ministry identification, her reason for accessing a restricted deck, and then, as if that were not enough, whether the barbarian with her had clearance to be on this ship at all. Mahit had answered before Three Seagrass could. She had looked the guard in the eye and quoted Song 16, the apt and skillful prosecution of this war, with the precise diction of a city orator, and the guard had stepped aside so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. Three Seagrass had felt something complicated then, pride, maybe, or worry, or the uncomfortable awareness that Mahit was better at being Teixcalaanli than most Teixcalaanlitslam, and that this was not a gift. It was an adaptation, a survival mechanism, a mask that Mahit had learned to wear because not wearing it would get her killed. And then Mahit had asked for a uniform. The argument had started so small. Three Seagrass had asked for Mahit's jacket to clean up the vomit because they had played the recording on the repeater, every wall speaker blasting that horrible layered frequency, and both of them had been sick on the floor. Mahit's jacket was civilian clothing, absorbent in crasses. Three Seagrass's uniform was a uniform, recognizable, necessary. Mahit had said, "Why my jacket?" And Three Seagrass had said, "Because mine is a uniform." And Mahit had said, "So get me a uniform." And Three Seagrass had said, "I'll adjust one of mine to fit you." And Mahit had said, "And then everyone will know I'm wearing your clothes." Read, which is even worse, and then the argument had stopped being about the jacket at all. It had become about power, about who got to be a person and who got to be a useful tool, about whether Three Seagrass saw Mahit as an equal or as a barbarian who happened to be brilliant, about the fact that Mahit had been dragged onto this ship, had been dragged off Elzel Station, away from heritage, away from the neurological exam that would have exposed her double imago, and had never once been asked what she wanted. Three Seagrass had not known how to answer. She still did not know. She had spent the night in a recreational bay, making conversation with a soldier named 14 Spike and pretending not to notice the Karanian kitten that 20 Cicada had given her, the one with semi-opposable thumbs purring in her lap. Now she was in the workroom, and Mahit was cycling through the alien recording on a datapad, isolating individual tonal markers, and they were not talking about any of it. The third sound, Three Seagrass said, the one they made when knife point approached too closely, and the last sound, the one from the chase, the victory sound. Approach danger plus hurrah, we win, Mahit said. Her voice was dry as dust. Could be worse. I hope we're right about hurrah, we win. Otherwise, we're saying something like approach danger and we're going to chase you. Do you have a better idea? Mahit did not have a better idea. Neither of them did. They worked in silence for an hour, splicing sounds, layering frequencies, building something that might, if the universe was merciful, be understood as, "Come talk to us, it will work out." The final message was 11 seconds long, 4 sounds repeated twice. On the third repetition, the contact-initiated sound played from 2 opposite directions at once, and the victory sound layered on top. Mahit played it back. The nausea hit immediately, a wave of vertigo, a taste like copper and bile at the back of the throat. Three Seagrass gripped the edge of the console. When it was over, they were both breathing hard. "That's going to make them sick, too," Mahit said. "If they hear it." "Good," Three Seagrass said. "If they know what it does to us, they'll know we're trying to speak their language." She did not say what she was thinking, that the aliens might interpret 11 seconds of nausea-inducing sound as a threat, not an invitation, that the entire message might be a declaration of war in a language neither side understood, that she had dragged Mahit across half the known universe to stand in a windowless room and vomit on the floor, and that Mahit had agreed to come, and that Three Seagrass still did not know why. The message was done. She gave it to 20 Cicada for delivery to the bridge. Mahit went back to their quarters alone. Three Seagrass walked the corridors of wait for the wheel and tried not to think about the fact that she was avoiding her own room. The fleet broadcasts and the aliens reply. 9 Hibiscus received the message on the bridge. 11 seconds. She played it once, at low volume, and felt the nausea curl in her stomach like a living thing. Then she gave the order to broadcast. The fleet held its breath. 2 hours passed. 3. She stood at the tactical display and watched the empty space where the alien ships ought to be, and thought about the shard pilot she had killed. The corrosive spit eating through metal and plasteel, the pilot's voice on open channel, "It's in here with me. Don't let it touch anyone else." The order she had given, and the sound the cannon made when it fired. 20 Cicada came to stand beside her. He did not say anything. He did not need to. His presence was enough. The familiar solidity of the only person on this ship who had known her since she was a cadet, who had seen her fail and seen her bleed and seen her win at Kauran with a strategy that should have gotten her court-martialed. "Swarm," she said, using his nickname, the one the troops had given him because he had informants on every ship in the fleet. "Tell me I'm not making a mistake. You're not making a mistake." "You don't believe that. I believe you're making the only choice you can make," 20 Cicada said. "That's not the same thing." Before she could answer, the comms officer, Two Foam, steady and unflappable, turned in her chair. "Joutlek. 2 alien ring ships have materialized at the edge of visual range. They're broadcasting." "Broadcasting what?" Two Foam's face was pale. "The envoy's message, Joutlek. They're playing it back." The aliens had appeared without warning. No sensor trace, no jump gate signature, no indication that they had been there at all until they simply were 2 ring ships hanging in the void at the very edge of visual range, their rotating hoops catching the distant light of Peloa's sun. They could have materialized in the heart of the fleet. They could have opened fire before anyone knew they were there. Instead, they played the message. 9 Hibiscus heard it through the bridge speakers, the same 11 seconds she had authorized, echoed back at her across the emptiness. "Approach! Danger! Contact initiated! Hurrah, we win!" The nausea was less this time. Maybe she was getting used to it. Maybe the aliens had adjusted the frequency. "Order reflective prism to play the message simultaneously," she said. "I want them to know we're listening." Two Foam relayed the order. Across the fleet, ships aligned their broadcast arrays. The 11-second message went out again, this time from a dozen sources, overlapping, reinforcing. A chorus instead of a solo. On the tactical display, the alien ships did not move, did not advance, did not retreat. "They're waiting," 20 Cicada said. "For what? For us to say something new." She thought about the syrinx in the alien's throat, the membrane stretched between her fingertips, the muscles that controlled pitch and frequency. Mahit had said they needed a live alien. She had said the recording was not natural, that it was produced by something that knew what those sounds would do to a human nervous system. Maybe the aliens were not trying to hurt anyone. Maybe the nausea was a side effect. Maybe the screaming was just the way they talked. "Get me the envoy and the ambassador," she said. "I want a visual message ready in the next hour. We're going to invite them to meet us face to face." First contact under the canopy. On Piloa 2, the heat was a physical assault. Mahit had never been on a planet before. She had spent her entire life on Elzel Station, climate-controlled, recycled air, every breath filtered and measured and accounted for. Piloa 2 was a desert. The sand was silica white and blinding, and the sun beat down with a weight that felt personal, intentional. The air smelled of char and something sweetly rotten. The dead colonists, the ones the aliens had eviscerated and left uneaten. She was sweating through her borrowed uniform. Three Seagrass had found one for her after all, unmarked, gray, the sleeves slightly too long. It was not a perfect fit, but it was a uniform, and Mahit had put it on without comment. The argument was still there between them, an unhealed wound, but there was no room for it here. Not under this sun. Not with 2 alien ring ships hovering somewhere above the atmosphere and a shuttle full of armed soldiers waiting behind them on the plateau. The canopy 20 Cicada had given them was a piece of unexpected beauty. The underside was patterned with lotuses and water lilies, Teixcalaanli, symbols of eternity, of memory, of rebirth. He had handed it to Three Seagrass without ceremony. For shade, he had said, "The sun will kill you faster than the aliens will." Mahit and Three Seagrass had set up the canopy together, working in silence, their hands brushing occasionally as they stretched the fabric between its poles. The soldiers stood watch. The audio projector sat ready. The holovid display was calibrated. And then the aliens came. 2 of them, tall 2 or 3 feet taller than any human Mahit had ever seen. Moving in a hunting lope across the sand, their long necks swaying, their round ears pricked forward, black keratin claws on 4-fingered hands, gray spotted skin, pale gray tactical uniforms with no visible weapons. They stopped at the edge of the shade, close enough to touch, close enough that Mahit could see the fine fur on their ears, the way their nostrils flared as they sampled the air, the dark intelligence in their forward-facing predator eyes. Three Seagrass pressed her fingertips together and bowed, the formal greeting of a Teixcalaanli citizen meeting an equal. Mahit watched the aliens watching and wondered what they saw. Two small, soft creatures in gray uniforms. Prey, maybe, or something stranger. Play the hello noise, Three Seagrass said, without turning her head. Mahit, now. Mahit triggered the audio projector. The 11-second message played. Approach, danger, contact initiated, hurrah, we win. Layered and repeated. The nausea rose in her throat, familiar now, almost manageable. One of the aliens, the one on the left, slightly taller, with a notch missing from its left ear, tilted its head. The other made a sound, not the machine scream from the recording. Something softer, a crooning vocalization, pitched low, almost musical. Three Seagrass straightened her shoulders. She set her jaw in the way Mahit had learned to recognize the focus that meant performance, oratory, the particular courage of a woman who had been trained to speak beautifully in front of emperors and now had to speak beautifully in front of monsters. And then she began to sing the Teixcalaanli funeral poem, the one they had heard over the ship's broadcast frequency after the first engagement, the naming of the dead, the celebration of sacrifice, the promise that the fallen would be remembered in the city's bronze memorials. Three Seagrass sang it as a war chant, emphasizing the words about chemical fire and blood flowers, her voice ringing out across the empty desert. Mahit joined her without thinking. The words were in her mouth before she realized she knew them, Iskandra's memory, or her own, or some fusion of the two that she could no longer untangle. She sang the second voice, the harmony, the counterpoint that made the funeral poem into a conversation between the living and the dead. The aliens listened. When the song ended, the taller one, the one with the notched ear, opened its mouth. The sound that came out was not the machine scream. It was a spitting, consonant-heavy sequence of pitched syllables. Imitable, almost like language, Mahit thought. I can say that. She shaped her mouth around the sounds, felt the alien syllables click and hiss against her teeth. When she repeated them back, the tall alien's ears pricked forward even further. It made the sound again. She repeated it again. A pigeon, she thought. We're building a pigeon. It took hours. The sun moved across the sky, and the canopy's shade shifted, and the soldiers behind them stood silent and watchful. And Mahit and Three Seagrass sat in the sand with two alien creatures and built a language out of nothing. 20 words, maybe 30, nouns and verbs, pointing and miming and drawing pictures in the sand. The tall alien was called Second. That was the best Mahit could do with the sounds it made to identify itself. Its companion was First and Second, greetings and partings. The aliens drew a circle for their ship and a line for the jump gate and a shape that might have been a star. Mahit drew a human figure and pointed at herself. Second drew a figure with claws, no pronouns, no tenses, no causality, no questions. The alien language, the part of it that could be spoken aloud, through mouths and syrinxes and vibrating membranes, was missing everything that made language feel like language. It was as if she were talking to someone who had never needed to distinguish between I and we, between now and later, between why and because. The aliens watched her struggle. Their round ears swiveled and flattened, their long necks curved in what might have been curiosity or might have been threat, and when Mahit's voice gave out, when the heat pressed down like a physical weight and her tongue felt thick and useless in her mouth, Three Seagrass took over. She sang the retreat and return plan, fly, pilot, a spaceship, land, pointing at herself and Mahit and the escorts, then pointing up, no, stop. Then she played the hull of it, a recording of their shuttle leaving and returning, edited together with the victory sound. Second watched the hull of it. It made the victory sound hurrah we win in its own voice, the syrinx producing a pitch-perfect imitation of the recording. Then it turned and began to walk back across the sand toward its ship. First followed, moving with the same joint precision they had shown since the moment they arrived, as if they were two embodied links of an imago chain. Three Seagrass collapsed. She went to her knees in the sand and vomited heat exhaustion, or relief, or the accumulated nausea of hours of alien sound. Mahit crouched beside her and put a hand on her spine. The gesture was instinctive, protective. The argument was still there between them, but it could wait. We did it, Three Seagrass said, when she could speak. Her voice was wrecked. We actually did it. 20 words, Mahit said. That's not a treaty. That's barely a conversation. It's a start. Spores, spies, and sacrifice. In the medbay of Wait for the Wheel, a young cadet named Six Rainfall was cleaning up after the autopsy. He was 2.5 indictions old, young enough to still have acne at his temples. And he had been given an honor, unsupervised access to the alien corpse, permission to catalog and preserve the biological samples that the medtechs had extracted. He noticed something in the alien's mouth. Small, spore-like structures, white and friable, nestled in the soft tissue of the palate. They were not listed in the autopsy report. They did not appear on any of the fleet's biological hazard registries. Six Rainfall took a sample. His gloved fingers slipped against the alien's carnivore teeth, sharp enough to slice through latex, sharp enough to draw blood, though the cut was so small he barely felt it. The spores entered his bloodstream through the wound. Within minutes, they began to bloom. They grew along the interior walls of his veins, sending out thread-like filaments that wove themselves into his blood cells and his capillaries and the soft tissue of his lungs. He began to cough. He began to choke. He tried to call for help, but his throat was already closing. By the time the biohazard containment algorithm triggered an alarm, Six Rainfall was dead. The fungus had herniated through his soft palate, just as it had done in the alien's mouth, and was growing out of his own face. His body lay on the medbay floor, still warm, a white bloom of alien tissue spreading across his lips and nostrils and open, sightless eyes. 20 Cicada was the one who found him. He had come to the medbay to check on the fungal sample he had ordered, preserve the cube of dried white material he had planned to show the aliens at the next meeting. He found the dead cadet instead. He sealed the medbay door behind him, triggered the quarantine protocol, and called 9 Hibiscus. There is a fungal bloom from the corpse of our enemy, he said, and his voice was even, controlled, the voice of a man who had spent his entire adult life not showing fear. A medical tech is dead. It ate him. Far from the fleet, in the city at the heart of Teixcalaanli, 8 Antidote was learning something that had nothing to do with alien fungi. The 11-year-old heir, who had been told by 19 ads to watch the Ministry of War and report back, had spent the morning at the Information Ministry talking to a subsecretary named One Cyclamen about jumpgate routing protocols. Physical objects only unmanned ships, simple algorithms, messages printed on infofiche sticks and carried across the emptiness of space at speeds that seemed fast until you realized how far the warfront was from the city. A fleet courier could bypass information's postal offices entirely. A priority message from a fleet captain to the Minister of War could travel from Wait for the Wheel to the city without anyone in the Information Ministry knowing it had been sent. 8 Antidote had thanked One Cyclamen and gone to the garden to think. 11 Laurel found him there. The undersecretary of the Third Palm was a tall man with an easy smile and a way of moving that suggested he already knew everything you were about to say. He greeted the boy with warmth, asked about his studies, complimented his progress. Then he said, "I hear you visited Information this morning." The garden suddenly felt very quiet. 8 Antidote was aware of the reflecting pool behind him, the hum of insects in the imported flowers, the distant sound of traffic on the city's elevated walkways. "I wanted to understand how messages travel," he said. "It seemed like something I should know." "Did it?" The undersecretary's tone was pleasant, unreadable. "And what did you learn?" "That fleet captains can bypass information entirely. If they want to send a message to the Minister of War without anyone knowing, interesting. And why would a fleet captain want to do that?" 8 Antidote thought about the spearhead hidden in his shirt drawer. About 19 Ads's voice, soft in the darkness of his room. "I want you to tell me if Minister 3 Azimuth intends to win this war or not." About the hologram of the Emperor as a young soldier, laughing with 6 direction, blood on her forehead. "I don't know," he said. 11 Laurel smiled. "I think you do, but I won't press. You're learning, Cure. That's good. I'd like to see you live to be emperor." He left the boy standing by the reflecting pool. The undersecretary had not threatened him. He had not even been unkind. But the words "live to be emperor" hung in the air like a warning, and 8 Antidote understood, with a clarity that made his stomach cold, that he was being used. By the emperor. By 11 Laurel. by everyone who saw him not as a child but as a piece on a board, a tool to be positioned and sacrificed. His hands were cold, even in the garden's warmth. The reflecting pool showed him his own face, the face of Six Direction, almost, the face people expected to see. He left the garden before the undersecretary could turn back. The walk to the Ministry of War would take 40 minutes, and he wanted to be there before anyone knew he was coming. The second meeting on Paloatu was different from the first. 20 Cicada went with them this time. He carried a sealed cube, the whitish fungus, dried to nothing now, rattling faintly inside its container. He carried a cloud hook loaded with tactical data. He carried the weight of a decision he had not yet told anyone about. The aliens were waiting at the same plateau, two of them again, but not first and second. These moved with the same joint precision, the same eerie synchrony third and fourth. Mahit named them in her head, though the pigeon had no way to express ordinal numbers. They looked at the humans with their forward-facing predator eyes, and Mahit felt, again, the impossible gulf between what she could say and what she needed to say. She drew in the sand. A human figure, eviscerated, guts spilling, an alien claw beside the body. She sang the pigeon word for stop. She pointed at the drawing, then at third, then at the drawing again. Third looked at the drawing for a long time, then it raised its clawed hand and began to draw in the sand beside Mahit's image. A human outline, another human outline, another. 5 humans, 10, a field of human shapes, lined up like crops, like casualties, like things that could be replaced. You can be multiplied, the drawing seemed to say. You are not unique. You are not precious. We can kill you because there will always be more of you. Mahit felt something break inside her, not her resolve that was still there. A thin wire of stubbornness that she had been clinging to since Ulcel, since the sabotage, since the moment she realized Tarats had made her a spy. Something deeper, some assumption she had not known she was carrying. The belief maybe that communication could bridge any gap, that words were enough, that if she could just find the right sounds, the right gestures, the right combination of approach, danger and hurrah, we win, the aliens would understand that humans were people, and people mattered. Third's drawing said, no, they don't. 20 Cicada stepped forward. He held up the cube. The white fungus inside rattled, the alien eyes fixed on it with the gravitational pull of a black hole. He pointed at Mahit's drawing, the dead human, torn up, wrecked. Then he pointed at the cube, then he pointed at third and fourth, at their mouths, at their throats, at the syrinxes hidden inside them. I'm going to bring them back a little piece of their dead, he said. His voice was calm. I'm staying here. Mahit stared at him. Three Seagrass grabbed his arm. You can't! The Yaolek knows! 20 Cicada did not look at her. He was still looking at the aliens, who were looking at the cube. She doesn't like it, but she knows. There's no way to communicate with them beyond this pigeon, Mahit said. Staying here won't, then I'll figure out a way. 20 Cicada finally turned to face her. His eyes were very steady, very tired, very old. I'm the Yatalek's adjutant. It's my job to figure out what she needs before she knows she needs it. She needs someone to talk to these things, these people. You're right, they are people without a time limit, without a shuttle waiting, without the sun going down. So I'll stay. You'll die, 3 Seagrass said. Probably, 20 Cicada almost smiled. But not before I learn something useful. Tell Mallow, tell the Yaotlek, I'll be in touch. He turned back to the aliens. Held up the cube again, took a step toward them, then another. The aliens did not move. Their ears were pricked forward, their long necks curved in what might have been curiosity. The cube rattled in his hand. Mahit grabbed 3 Seagrass's wrist and pulled her back toward the shuttle. The soldiers were already moving, forming a perimeter, covering their retreat. 3 Seagrass was shaking. Mahit could feel the tremor through her grip. He's going to let them eat him, 3 Seagrass said. That's what the fungus does. It eats you from the inside. I know, Mahit said. She did not say, I know what it's like to have someone else's voice in your head. I know what it's like to be colonized. Maybe he's trying to colonize them back. The shuttle door closed. The engines fired. Through the viewport, Mahit watched 20 Cicada grow smaller and smaller, a lone gray figure standing beside 2 tall alien shapes on an endless white desert, holding a box of death in his outstretched hand. End. On wait for the wheel, 9 Hibiscus received the report from 18 Chisel. The scout ship Gravity Rose had found it, an inhabited planet, 1 satellite, civilian traffic in orbit. The alien home system, the heart of the enemy. She looked at the coordinates. She thought about scatter bombs. She thought about the corrosive spit that had eaten through a shard, the shard pilot she had killed with her own order, the funeral orations that had been playing on the ship's frequency for days. She thought about 20 Cicada, standing on a desert plateau with a box of fungus in his hand, offering himself to creatures that did not understand the concept of person. Suppress this information, she said to 18 Chisel. No one outside this room knows we've found their homeworld, especially not 16 Moonrise. 18 Chisel nodded. And the envoy? In bringing them back, the Emperor has sent a priority summons. She wants the ambassador and the envoy in the city. I don't know why. I don't like it, but I can't ignore a direct order from 19 ads. She did not say what she was thinking, that 16 Moonrise had sent her own message to the Ministry of War, that the captain had been on her ship for days watching everything, reporting everything, that 3 Azimuth now knew about Mahit's Mare, about the alien autopsy, about the fact that first contact had been established by a barbarian and a runaway information agent. Instead, she went to her quarters. She fed the Koranian kitten, the one with the semi-opposable thumbs that 20 Cicada had insisted on keeping. She watered the hydroponic plants. She sat in the dark, and she waited. Hours later, a priority message arrived from Peloa 2, not from the aliens, from 20 Cicada's personal cloud hook, relayed through the shuttle's comms array. His voice was syncopated, strange, as if he were assembling words from first principles. The aliens, he said, are a hive mind. They communicate through the fungus. I can hear them. Duo. I think I can talk to them. Tell the Yaotlek I'm going to try something. If it works, the war stops. If it doesn't, the message cut off. 9 Hibiscus listened to the silence for a long time, the kitten purring in her lap, the stars turning slowly in the viewport behind her. If it doesn't, she said aloud to no one, it'll burn their homeworld to ashes. But she did not give the order. Not yet. 20 Cicada was still alive, and while he was still alive, there was still a chance. She would wait. She would give him time. The kitten purred, the ship hummed, the war ground on, waiting for someone to end it. Episode 3, A Desolation Called Peace. 8 Antidote, the heir who discovered the genocide plan, now faces as emperor. He had come to Palace East with the spearhead hidden in his shirt drawer and a question burning in his throat. He had come believing that if he could just make 19 Adzas see what he had seen, the plan for nuclear shatter bombs, the deliberate secrecy, the shard trick hidden from the throne, she would stop it. He was 11 years old. He still believed emperors could be reasoned with. The emperor received him in her white suite, the one with the view of the city's spiral towers and the garden where humming insects danced in imported flowers. She was eating cassava bread, breaking off pieces with her fingers, and she did not look surprised to see him. She had known he was coming. She always knew. Tell me what you found, little spy, she said. 8, Antidote told her. The shatter bomb strike, the message already prepared. 16 Moonrise moving toward the alien homeworld even now, willing to die for the plan. 3 Azimuth and 11 Laurel keeping the shard proprioception link secret from the throne. Everything. The emperor listened without interrupting. When he finished, she took another bite of cassava bread, chewed, swallowed. Then she said, I know. The words landed in 8 Antidote's stomach like a stone dropped into still water. You know, I know about the shard link. I know about the strike plan. I know 11 Laurel has been hiding it from me. Her voice was calm, unhurried. I'm not making them stop because I believe it's the right idea. 8 Antidote stared at her. This was the emperor who had given him a blood-stained spearhead and told him about peace. This was the woman who had woken him in the dark to show him a hologram of herself as a young soldier, laughing with 6 direction, blood on her forehead. This was the guardian who had called him my annoying successor and made him feel, for the first time in his life, that he might have a purpose beyond being a 90% clone. Why? He said. He hated how plaintive he sounded. The emperor set down her bread. She looked at him with something that might have been pity, or might have been exhaustion, or might have been the specific weariness of someone who has had to make too many terrible decisions and will have to make more. It is a terrible thing to do, she said, destroying a planet. killing a civilization. I believe it is horrible. I believe it will scar us for generations. But that's what emperors are for, 8 Antidote. Terrible decisions. I would rather commit one act of horror than an endless war of attrition. I would rather cauterize the wound than let the patient bleed out over years. They're people, 8 Antidote said. Not humans, but people. The envoy said so. The ambassador said so. The aliens understand death. I heard the envoy's message. The emperor's voice sharpened. I heard a barbarian and a runaway bureaucrat tell me the aliens might be persons. I heard no certainty. I heard no guarantee. What I saw was a war that has already killed thousands of Teixcalaanli soldiers. A war where the enemy uses corrosive weapons that eat through ships and pilots. A war where an alien fungus kills from the inside, blooming through soft palates and herniating through faces. These are not people who want peace. This is a collective that considers us meat. How do you know what the aliens want? 8 Antidote's voice cracked. We haven't even tried to talk to the aliens properly. We sent 2 people with a 20-word pigeon and no way to say pronoun or time or cause, and you're already ready to kill them all? The emperor was quiet for a moment. Then she said very softly, I have done this before. The room seemed to hold its breath. Six Direction and I, she said, we killed a city together. On Nakar, we made the decision, and we gave the order, and the city burned, and the war ended. I know what it costs. I know what it feels like afterward. I am still telling you it was the right decision. 8 Antidote's hands were shaking. He pressed them against his thighs to still them. And Six Direction loved the El Cell ambassador, he said. It was not a question. Iskandar Ahavn, you said he gave him an imago machine. You said he offered to make him immortal. Yes, and you helped kill him. The Emperor of Teixcalaanli did not flinch. Yes, why? Because Iskandar Aghavan was a danger to Teixcalaanli, because he offered Six Direction something no emperor should have a way to live forever. Because if Six Direction had taken that offer, if he had put an imago machine in his brainstem and planned to be reborn in a clone body, he would have been emperor forever. Not a line of successors. Not a government of individuals. One man, eternal, unkillable. That is not what Teixcalaanli is. That is not what I swore to protect. 8 Antidote thought about the imago machine in Mahit Desmar's brainstem. About the way she quoted Teixcalaanli poetry and moved like Iskand and argued like someone who was never quite alone inside her own head. About what it would mean if an emperor had that. So you killed him, he said, for the good of the empire. Six Direction killed him. I helped. The emperor's voice was very even. It was the worst thing I have ever done. I loved Six Direction. I loved the way he laughed. I loved the way he fought. I loved him enough to kill the person he loved most, because loving that person would have destroyed him. She reached across the table and took 8 Antidote's hand. Her fingers were warm, dry, calloused in ways a soldier's hands were calloused. Do you understand now, she said, what being emperor means? It means being willing to do the terrible thing. It means being willing to let other people do the terrible thing. It means looking at the death of a planet and saying, yes, this is necessary. 8 Antidote pulled his hand back. No, he said. No, no. I don't understand. I don't want to understand. He stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. You keep telling me I'm supposed to be emperor someday. You keep giving me lessons and tests and secrets. But this isn't the Teixcalaanli I wanted to learn. This isn't the Teixcalaanli you promised me when you gave me that spearhead. You said, his voice broke. You said we were making a place where no more cities would burn, where no more planets would die. But that was a lie, wasn't it? You were already planning this. You already knew. I was preparing for the possibility. You were hoping. 8 Antidote's voice rose. You wanted a war. You made 9 Hibiscus Yadalak because you thought she might be dangerous enough to stay alive. You sent her to the front because you wanted someone who would fight. And now you have your war, and you have your genocide, and you're sitting here eating cassava bread telling me it's necessary. 8 Antidote, what would I have been like? The question came out before he knew he was asking it. If Six Direction had taken the imago machine, if had lived, what would I have been like? The emperor looked at him. Her face, for the first time, showed something other than imperial composure. It showed grief. You would have been untenable, she said. Not you. Not Six Direction. Something else. A thing that was neither person but both. I made sure that would never happen. Eight Antidote felt something crack inside him, not his resolve that was still there, a thin wire of stubbornness that had been growing since the moment he first crawled through the palace tunnels to find the Ministry of War. Something deeper, the last of his childhood maybe, the belief that adults knew what they were doing. "Thank you," he said, "for telling me the truth." He walked out of the Emperor's suite. He did not bow, he did not look back. The guards at the door let him pass. They always did. He was the heir, the 90% clone. The boy who could go anywhere, and he walked through the corridors of Palace East with his spine straight and his eyes burning, and his mind racing with something that felt like fury and felt like grief and felt, most of all, like a decision hardening into certainty. Mark. He was going to stop this. He was going to make it impossible for anyone, the Emperor, the Minister of War, 11 Laurel, anyone to destroy a planet. He did not know how yet, but he knew one thing. He was not Sixth Direction. He was not going to be a vessel for someone else's immortality. He was not going to be a tool for someone else's genocide. He was Eight Antidote. He was himself, and he was done being used. Terrets arrives at the fleet. On wait for the wheel, Mahit woke to the sound of proximity alarms. The klaxon was a low, pulsing throb that vibrated through the deck plates and into her bones. She was out of bed before she was fully conscious, grabbing for her jacket, the white one, the one that made her look like the Emperor, and pulling it on over her sleep clothes. Three Seagrass was already at the door, her cloud hook glowing at her wrist, her face set in the particular expression of someone who has just received very bad news. "There's a ship," Three Seagrass said. "A.L. Self-Flitter. It came through the jump gate, demanded to dock, refused to identify itself except to the Yaholek." Mahit's blood went cold. She knew that flitter. She knew the protocol L-Cell station pilots didn't demand. They requested. They bartered. They traded favors and owed debts. The only person who would demand was someone who believed he had the authority to command. "Tarats," she said. Three Seagrass looked at her sharply. "Darsh Tarats? The miner's counselor? Why would he? Because he sent me here." Mahit's voice was flat. "To spy, to sabotage, to keep Teixcalaanli at war. And I haven't been doing it." The silence that followed was the worst silence of Mahit's life. Three Seagrass stood in the doorway, her hand still raised toward her cloud hook, her face going through a series of expressions that Mahit could not quite track. Shock, hurt, fury, and then, surprisingly, something that looked like exhaustion. "You told me," Three Seagrass said slowly, "you told me you were supposed to sabotage the talks, but you decided not to. You said I didn't tell you everything." "No, you didn't. I was going to. I wanted to. And I was afraid." Three Seagrass's voice was flat. "I know. You're always afraid, Mahit. You've been afraid since the day I met you. I just didn't realize you were afraid of me." "I'm not afraid of you. Then why didn't you tell me?" Mahit didn't have an answer. Or she had too many answers, all of them true, none of them adequate. She was afraid of being sent back to Ulsul. She was afraid of being arrested. She was afraid of what Three Seagrass would think of her if she knew the full truth, that she had agreed to be Terretz's spy, that she had taken his terms, that she had walked into that office on Ulsul and said, "Yes, I will prolong your war." "Because I was ashamed," she said finally. "Because I didn't want you to know what I was willing to do to survive." Three Seagrass took a breath, released it. The klaxon was still pulsing, low and insistent, and somewhere above them on the bridge, 9 Hibiscus was making decisions about a lessel flitter that was demanding to dock. "Well, talk about this later," Three Seagrass said. "Right now, we have a counselor to deal with." She turned and walked toward the bridge. Mahit followed. The neuropathy in her fingers was flaring, fizzing sparkles of pain running from her knuckles to her elbows, the old wound of the sabotaged Imagaline. Yiskandra's voice was a quiet hum at the back of her skull. "Well," he said, "this is going to be unpleasant." "I know," Mahit thought. "I know."